Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Linnell, and I am with Salt Lake County Aging and Adult Services, the host agency for this year's Utah Elder Justice Conference. I want to welcome you to the Caregiver Talking Points, a preventive wellness coaching program session, which we are recording for later viewing. As an attendee of this session, you will only be able to see the presenter and yourself. All other attendees are hidden from your view. You can click on the lower right side of the screen to see the panelists. Please ask any questions you have through the Q&A, which is also located on the bottom of your right screen. And I will now turn the time over to our presenter, who will introduce herself.
You that have joined us here at the Elders Conference today. The Elder Justice Conference is obviously new, and we're really excited about the prospect of sharing all this information. So I would like to go through with you today the Caregiver Talking Points program, which is brand new. And it is a preventive wellness coaching program, which is a little bit different approach to education. So we're going to share with you a few essentials. The overview is what are caregiver talking points? Why were they created? Why are they valuable? And are the materials available to me? So we're going to be going through all of those questions, but not necessarily purely in that order, just to let you know. And so we'll just move into the material. So the continuum of care for a caregiver, it's really important that we review this together before we talk about this program, because it's a very vital part in figuring out why we created this program the way we did. In the continuum of care, there is always a starting point for someone becoming the care provider or care partner for someone else. So the starting point might be that your parents are aging and need a little assistance. It may be that a chronic illness has been diagnosed in the family. It could be a crisis or an accident that's occurred. Someone has received a traumatic brain injury or received cancer diagnosis, any of those things. And then it also might be just a simple inheritance of care, where let's say your parents have aged up and they're no longer able to care for an older brother with Down syndrome or other conditions, and you become the primary caregiver in the family for that sibling instead of your parents. So once this process starts, wherever it starts for you, there are two things that happen. One, the functionality and the ability of the person receiving care goes down over time. And the requirements of the caregiver, that person who's providing the care, goes up. And one of the things that we've noticed over the years, I've worked for Aging and Adult Services in the Caregiver Support Program for 15 years now. And one of the things that we've steadily noticed is that the caregiver's ability and sustainability can often just barely be above the functional or ability of the person receiving care, that care receiver. So when we were looking at the types of education we provide and what we could do to sustain ability and help caregivers, we realized that whatever we created, we have to find a way to where we can help caregivers move this red line, that we can move them back up toward the requirements of the caregiver so that they can have the energy and the ability, the knowledge, everything that's going to take in order to help them process and move forward on the continuum of care for a longer period of time. One of the things that we have definitely seen over time is that every once in a while we have a caregiver that actually passes away before the person they care for. It's because their sustainability is completely depleted. And for whatever reason, we were not able to assist them along that path, or they never found a path to get on except for the knowledge that their family currently has. So when we talk about preventive wellness education, in this case, it's a coaching program. If we look at preventive care, we're really used to that definition from going to doctor's appointments and our dental checkups all the years of our life. So preventive care is really helps detect and prevent serious disease and medical problems. And the key here is before they become major. And then the annual checkups, the immunizations, the flu shots are a few examples of that preventive care. So the question is, how do you have preventive care in education? Well, preventive wellness education assists in redirecting caregivers and others away from choices and behaviors that lead to the loss or damage of their ability, sustainability, and even independence. And this is really important because if we're going to create a preventive program, we need to make sure that we're ahead of the curve and that we're keeping that red line, like we showed you before, up near what a caregiver needs to achieve in order to stay healthy during the care environment process. So I want to give you a little historical insight. One of the things we've obviously learned over time is that caregivers are incredibly complex. I can't even tell you how complex we found most of their cases to be. They come from all levels of the caregiver continuum, and their stories, their culture, not to mention their languages and other things, their challenges are personal and individual. That's one thing we've become very clear on. The second piece is, not too long into my career here, I had this amazing caregiver who pretty much told me off after a class at a library. And I have just loved this person ever since because they really set me on a trajectory and a path that was essential for the type of education we were providing. The caregiver told me I was failing her basically, and she just yelled out into the room at the end of the session, "Don't give me another phone number to call, teach me how to fix this." And I realized that even though she was sitting there in the middle of an evidence-based program for caregivers, there was a lot of referral and knowledge testing going on with this program, but we really weren't teaching her a lot of skills. And it took me a while, honestly, to figure out the depth to which she was referring. And so that really impacted me and how this new program has been built. And the third thing that I went through during my career that was essential was a judge in West Jordan Justice Court, has these elder abuse and exploitation cases coming through the court. Well, the one thing that she decided to do was make education a part of the requirements for someone to be considered to take their parents back into their home or to be their caregiver again. Now, the one thing this particular client said to me is, "I'm not going to tell you everything that mean judge said to me, but this is basically what she said. No education, no parents." And what I found so valuable about this was the judge's knowledge that if something didn't change in this care environment, this caregiver was going to go right back onto the path that they were currently being taken into account for. So with those three things in mind, I thought, what does all this mean? One thing we need to know about caregivers is we have to coach from where a person stands. It's not just caregivers, it's everyone. The caregivers will only move forward from where they are, not from where we hope they are, not from where they're supposed to be for their age, according to the perception of who knows, whoever's training them. But we really do need to coach them from where they stand. And then caregivers don't know what they don't know. This is very vital. Yet they are held accountable for that lack of skill and knowledge, and often quite harshly held accountable. And they thought they were doing everything they possibly could, but the truth was they didn't know what they didn't know. Another thing that we find to be a result of some of my experiences is that we've learned that we're not listening broadly enough. Professionals are trained to refer. So often we listen to refer instead of listen to solve or listen to assist. And so one of the examples is we often hear the word dementia or any other chronic illness, and we tend to want to refer them right away to the organization associated with that disease. So we will refer them over to the Alzheimer's Association, Parkinson's, any of those groups, without really assisting the person in any way, or even listening broad enough to find out exactly what their real education or need is that they're calling for. And in this case, when someone called about dementia and I thought about this case, the real need ended up being a life skill. The person did not know how to use I statements to calmly and clearly ask for the help that they needed. So they were offending a lot of their family members and weren't getting the help they needed. And the second thing they needed was boundary setting. And so they were staying up 24 hours a night. They weren't, a day. They weren't getting the sleep they needed. They were oxygen and nutrition deprived. And so that really wasn't disease specific. That was life skill specific. And that is something that any of our organizations should be able to coach some of our caregivers through. And so we're often referring people to other levels of care when we should be able to solve those issues with them through a good, healthy discussion or webinar. The other thing that we know, a lot of us as professionals, is that the same skills always equal the same results. And so caregivers really need new tools that assist in building skills, and they need to be as bite-sized as possible. What we've learned is even a 1-hour class can be really, really difficult if there's not enough discussion or bite-sized linkage into what's happening in their care environment at that moment. So I want to talk to you about what we've designed and why it will be of value. And I'm going to show you quite a few of these to give you an idea of what the progress is that we're making on this program. We currently have 25 skill-based worksheets that we've developed. And I'm going to stop here a moment and share those with you, the subjects of them and what some of them look like. They are all very simply made. I just want to point that out really quick. There are 25 subjects. They start at the very beginning of the continuum of care and go all the way through to recovery after the death of the person they're caring for. So these bite-sized nuggets all have 7 steps in the worksheet. There's always 4 steps on the front, 3 steps on the back, and some wrap-up. And they're built simply enough so that they can be coached from many different professional standpoints to help someone learn those life skills they need to move forward with their caregiving on their own. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment and bring up a different screen. Okay. So I want to share this list of the caregiver talking points with you. And I'm just going to list off the titles. Let me just stretch this out so you can see it a little bit. I just went right into my database. So the first one that we offer is caring for others. A lot of individuals, when they get started, don't even know that they're in a care providing role. They don't know what that means, or that there might be assistance available to them because of the role that they're playing. The second subject we have is helping others accept care. Many times we have our family members and friends and neighbors who have stepped in to provide this role, who look at helping others accept care as, I'm going to tell them what they need and hopefully they will accept that from me. Or how do I get my mom to accept the fact that she needs to be placed early? Or how do I get my mom to give up her house? Well, that's not really how to help others accept care. So we'll show you that one in just a moment. Finding resources, and this isn't just a list of resources for them to click onto. This is actually coaching them in the art of resourcing so that they can go out and find the resources they need, have the skill to look and find other resources beyond what we may even know about for them. The next one is building resilience, because we know that we need to keep their energy level up so that that red line they're on, as they're building and sustaining their resilience through time, stays up closer to their needs rather than down with the dysfunctionality of the person they're caring for. The next one is identifying abilities. The abilities meaning, can this person still bathe, dress themselves, all of the activities of daily living? And what are they still capable of? And am I still allowing them to be as independent as possible to keep them as healthy as I can for as long as I can? The next one would be clarifying concerns. One of the struggles that our caregivers often talk about is they're not sure how to explain to someone else what they truly need. So we teach them how to clarify a concern, the 5 why process, and other skills to help them be able to do that better. The next one is setting boundaries. That one is just really fun and phenomenal to watch their response to how to set a boundary and how to use a great I statement to make that happen without offending others, but still defending what they need to keep their care environment safe and supportive. Then we teach them how to hold care planning meetings. The traditional word for this might be a family meeting, but care planning meetings are now really interdisciplinary and involve a lot more individuals. And we want to broaden their perspective of who could possibly be in that care planning meeting with them so that they have a multiplicity of voices to rely on. So improving communication is the next one. We teach them how to communicate with those that are supporting them in the caregiver environment so that all the secondary caregivers can participate in a way that gives them choice, so that they don't feel like they're being directed or told how to provide care, but yet there's a list of options for them to choose from, and then they can participate as their time and abilities allow. Asking for help, how do I go about, fun ways of asking other people for help to assist me in the care environment. And then we realized along the way that there was multiplicity of levels of behavior and the ways to approach behaviors. And what we didn't want to do was create an us and them environment between an individual that has strong behaviors with a disease or a medication or other things and their caregiver who is trying their best to balance all of this information. So we broke behaviors into 3 sessions. One is understanding behaviors. One is learning to calm behaviors to keep a calm environment. And the third one on behaviors is working with behaviors, meaning those more difficult ones that may take outside assistance. And those have been really, really well received. We've been testing these out since last July 1st. We have learning new skills. One of the things we noticed about our caregivers early on was that they were depleting their own desire to go out and explore new things, to learn new things and enjoy life, because they thought everything they learned had to be about their caregiving role. They thought they had to go learn about the disease more, that's all we were going to ask of them. But the truth is, we want them to be inspired about life in general to keep their energy up. So learning new things is an important thing to review with them now and then, so that they can be refreshed as a human being and be able to still function in the midst of a lot of challenge. Another one that we've added a lot of these new subjects. By the way, these all come from the caregivers. They don't come from us. Over the years, we have had them say, well, that's great that you're teaching me this, but what I really need is, and then we just started a list. So probably half of these subjects come from just that list that we've been making over time, thinking, well, how do we create that for them? Getting creative is a session that's quite fun, actually, and we think about things like, if I need to scoop mom in the seat of a car and I need her to be able to slide easily, but I don't want to buy an expensive small pad on ball bearings that roll around as she moves in, well then what about a plastic bag sitting underneath her with handles on it? She can sit in and then I can lift her legs and just move her legs over with my hands on the handles. So there's a lot of really creative things we talk about in that session. Another fun one is, why should I have to buy brand new front loading washer and dryers on a pedestal if my arm is just maybe 4 inches too short now because of back injury or whatever to reach the clothes at the bottom, those last few socks? Well, what about a grabber or a spaghetti grabber out of the kitchen drawer or a set of tongs that you might use for cooking? Those things are all just small extensions of the arm. So we teach them some really creative ways to get past the expense of providing care. The next one is embracing technology. What types of new technologies exist? How might I use them? And what would be really helpful for my family based on our story and current care situation? Then a lot of individuals want legal support and are not even sure where to begin. So we do the basics of locating legal support, help attach them to Utah court self-learning environments and other things so that they can educate themselves, go ask for help, know what they can ask to find the legal support that they might need. And then there's arranging care at home, which is very different from the next one of arranging care in a facility because there's a role differentiation for that care provider. And we are still obviously talking about non-professional caregivers here. They're family, friends, neighbors that are really the unpaid heroes of the United States and the world that are reaching out to their families and providing this care. The next one is solving concerns with facilities. Let's say you are not sure how to handle that. You don't know that there's an advocate in the building. You don't even know what an ombudsman is or have never heard of one. This worksheet will actually teach them how to work that system and get the support they need to make sure that their loved ones are well cared for in a facility. It also teaches them the balance between what is a reasonable expectation, what's in the contract I signed, and yes, this company still has to run a business and be successful, even though they're assisting us and those that live in their facility. So the next one would be applying for assistance. Not everyone can make it on their fixed incomes and make things work. So we teach them about low income assistance applications, who has them, what are they, how do they work? And then of course, how do I go find new ones that might pop up that are a grant that's new in the Valley? The next one down will be holding end of life discussions. And of course, none of these have to be held in the exact order from 1 to 25. One of the beauties of having a small coaching system like this is it doesn't matter where the caregiver joins us from, what level of that caregiver continuum they're at. If they're at the very end and they only need the last 5 coaching sessions, then that may be all they get from the person who's coaching them. But the holding end of life discussions, we can actually do that at the very beginning of the continuum of care as well as at the end, so that it can be tweaked for current point of reference, but it can also be something we're thinking about as this whole process is moving forward in our lives. When someone dies at home, you know, a caregiver, for years I've been getting those phone calls that say, what do I do if I go over to my mom's apartment and she has died during the night? I don't even know where to start. And I wouldn't know where to start, and I'll be too emotional when I get there to really figure this out. So we've created an actual worksheet that can help them work through this. Managing loss, that will be the next step after they've lost their caregiver. We've never really broached that subject of what happens afterwards in our training, because we've been so busy helping them get through caregiving that we really haven't started to talk to them about how are we going to manage loss after this? Where are the support mechanisms in the Valley? Who would I talk to? How does this function? And then the final one we've created for this first basic set of 25 is re-engaging in life. How do I find out who I am and what I need? So we want to just share a few of these with you, and I am going to have to share it in a little bit different way if you'll give me just a moment. Okay. Okay. I'll be able to share one with you here. Wrong share. This is why we love technology so very, very much. Okay. So let me show you this one. It's called Identifying Abilities. And this is just one of the many talking points. But how do you know what to do for those you care for? And you'll see that as we go through, there are spaces to write, there are check boxes to fill out. So if a care manager wanted to coach someone on this subject, they could either send the talking point to them in advance, have them print it off, and then the two of them could have a small WebEx meeting and simply talk through the worksheet, answer any questions, and just assist them with this knowledge. So what is the current medical condition of the person you care for? And one of the reasons we have this is so that, one, as caregivers, we don't expect too much or too little of the person we care for, and that we learn more about that person from their perspective. So what activities can the person you care for do on their own? And then we give them a few options to get them started: able to get out of bed or a chair, able to shower or bathe, any number of these, able to prepare meals, able to keep the home clean, able to do laundry, able to pay bills. But what's important is this little scale across the top, because they can make another worksheet and list anything else they want to know about the person they provide care for. It's this section up here that becomes important. They can do this item without help. They can do it with some help. They can do it but refuse to, or they're not able to do it physically, mentally, or emotionally on their own. So it's understanding what level of care this person might be at. So the next step in the worksheet would be, what did you learn by reviewing the current abilities of the person you care for? That's important because we need, as we work with caregivers, I had a woman tell me recently, I never realized that my mom was just simply refusing to do it because I have been doing it for her lately, even though she's still capable. And then that particular caregiver realized she needed to back off and request her mother to do a little bit more of her own care. Step 4 in this particular one would be based on what you reviewed. Are you currently asking too much or too little of the person you care for, and why? So they're analyzing what they learn as well as learning the skill. Based on what you reviewed, what changes do you need to make to encourage your care receiver to be more independent? And 6, what is the best way to approach the person about a needed change that might need to be made? And is there anyone else on the care team that could help you by supporting the change? You might need assistance. And one of the things that comes up often in this level of discussion is, are you the right person to approach them about the change? And if you're not, do you have that brother that has an in with mom in the communication style that maybe you haven't reached over the years? And is he the advocate that you need to approach her about change, instead of you being always the one that has to be the bearer of change request? And then, of course, 7 on a lot of these is try one. If you are unsure how to improve the situation, call your doctor, the 211 information line, elder care, find an area agency on aging near you, and ask a few questions of the professionals in this field. They might be able to provide you more information than what you have learned already in the worksheet. So each of these worksheets has some really phenomenal pieces. And what that means is each of these will get you a different result. And depending on a lot of complication in the caregiver's life, each of these worksheets has a different value for the person that's looking at it. Now, I want to just share a couple comments with you, because we've taught these in a multiplicity of environments. One-on-one coaching, we've even done them in the professional setting with Salt Lake Community College employees. We have also been teaching them in the public. And so this particular caregiver said, I use the class worksheet for assessing abilities differently. I told my mom I had homework from class and I needed her to help me fill it out. I used it to interview her. She told me what she thought her abilities were, and then I compared her answers with what I thought. We were pretty close. Afterwards, she said, are we done with homework yet? And I said, yes, and we ate ice cream as a reward. I thought that was phenomenal, because what I've learned in the small group sessions that we're doing with these worksheets, where 3 or 4 employees or even 5 or 6 caregivers from the public might have the same need, so they will sign up for the same session in class. I find that sometimes as their coach, as their facilitator, I am quiet for a good 10 minutes at a time because they are busy teaching each other, which is what I found phenomenal about this worksheet discussion system. And this is one of the learning moments that I went through as the facilitator, that she came up with almost a more fun idea on how to use this worksheet than I had. And so I learned from her, and I will continue to learn from those that go through these sessions, so that we can give many ideas to the case managers who might be using them to coach their individual clients one-on-one. The next experience I thought was really, really fun. We were talking about how to care for others and stuff, and they gave me permission to share this quote. Please tell your management that you are preventing murder with these classes. Everyone in class laughed, and then we all struggle on certain days due to the behaviors we see. We just have to laugh about how these classes keep us from doing and saying things we shouldn't. Seriously, the things we are helping each other learn are really helping. I've added humor back to my life. There have been some real pivot points for caregivers as they have been together with some peers. 1, they realize they're not alone. 2, they have plenty of time to talk during these coaching sessions, and they are learning skills that are preventing and derailing them from making behaviors and other issues in their life that might lead them down the wrong path. And so it's been really a great learning environment, not just for the caregivers, but for those who are facilitating. So These are individual and group coaching tools. Now, one thing we need to help you understand is these are not standalone worksheets. These are not something you would just email out and hope they can do on their own and then report back. They are meant to be in a coaching environment. That way, there is a good, healthy discussion that comes with it to make sure that any caregiver, regardless of what education level, place in life, depletion level they're coming from, there is a healthy discussion that helps them understand what the worksheet is for. Small groups are really, really healthy with this. They learn from each other. Like I said, I was quiet for 10 minutes the other day while my caregivers taught each other, and I just sat there and listened in awe. The power of discussing and sharing is very, very powerful with these, but they were very much to be coaching tools, not standalone. Like we said, we have 25 worksheets currently in English that cover the full continuum of care. There is also a PowerPoint presentation that goes with each one of these that walks through every step of the worksheet. And what that does is many times when I'm doing the public coaching session with these, I do not give them the worksheet in advance because I want them to participate in the process of the discussion and be fully engaged. And then the next morning after the coaching session is over, I will send them the worksheet out to complete on their own and have a discussion with family based on what they learned in their session. The next point is PowerPoint presentations are there for the groups, which means you can have those up and use them, or you can use them from a worksheet depending on whether you're teaching in person or virtually. The PowerPoint presentations are really helpful for the virtual. SharePoint link for anyone who gets involved with this program and needs to have access to it. We have created a SharePoint program where anyone who's involved with this with us will have the consistency and ease of access to the very latest versions of these as they get slightly polished over time. They have just come through their beta test, and so we know that we will do a tiny bit of polishing over time. So that's how we'd be sharing that with anyone that's involved with us, is through the SharePoint link. You know, one of the healthiest things I've learned in my career is no one program can do this alone. No one person, no one small group of people even. It takes many, many of us across this industry to reach all of our caregivers. They go to their trusted share points of their own. They determine who they're going to trust, whether that's a cleric or a medical doctor or their family legal advisor. And everyone needs to assist in the learning environment for caregivers. And so this was created so that many people could be coaches for their own sets of caregivers. And then we could see how many are being taught over time in our respective areas. So with that being said, what that means is that we have a Train the Facilitator program that will be available in a few months later this summer for this program. There will be no cost for attending. Our main mandate for Aging and Adult Services is to educate our caregivers. And so we are going to use that in an open partnership environment to make sure the caregivers get reached, whether it's us that's doing it or not. We will have a memo of understanding to make sure that the fidelity of the program stays in place. And there will be a data exchange request for anybody that gets involved, and it will be aggregate. So you will be able to say on a monthly basis, I taught 5 caregivers this many coaching sessions. And so that's all we would need in return, but there's no cost for the program. And because everything is electronic, you would pay for your own printing, etc., if you wanted to give paper copies to someone. So cultural adaptation is in process, just to let you know. We realize that this initial session that we have created, these are for your general English-speaking American caregiver in the West. What that means is some things will need to be adapted if we're going to roll this out for various groups in different areas, even of Salt Lake County. So we have started a project with the Community Health Worker Program. They have a grant to adapt and translate materials, and we have started that process. Now, the initial process is actually not language translation, but cultural adaptation. So those community health workers are looking at every aspect of those 1 through 25 to see if any of them will work in the culture at which they work for and work with. They will then make suggestions on how that subject and that discussion needs to be adapted for their culture. Once those cultural adaptations are done and we see those, then and only then will they be translated so that they can be shared in the community when they are ready for that community so that they can be successful. And then those community healthcare workers can actually use the program to work within their refugee and immigrant populations. So that is a partnership between the community healthcare workers, the Salt Lake County Caregiver Support Program, and the Salt Lake County Older Refugee Program, which are both of those are parts of Aging and Adult Services. So the question is, how do you get involved? And that becomes really easy. You email your interest to ksnelson@slco.org, which is my email. I will be creating a shared drive of people with interest. That way, as soon as we are ready to roll out this into a deeper conversation and even allow for facilitator training, that we will already know that you're interested and that you would like to participate and have these worksheets for you to use with your clients. So I believe that's my last slide. Yes, so there's my contact information again in a little bit larger mode. Also, if you've never really heard about the Caregiver Support Program and you want to know more about what we do and other tools that we have available besides the caregiver talking points, we also have a stress busting program that's evidence-based. We also have other things that you can participate in, even learn to be a facilitator for and participate with those programs. That is all listed on our slco.org/caregiver portion of our website here at Aging and Adult Services. You can also call that main number or have your clients call that main number if they want to participate in programs that are already going. Let's say you have a really small staff in your team and having a facilitator with your group isn't really optimal right now, but they need to attend a virtual version of one of these coaching sessions or other things that we do. They can actually sign up from anywhere because virtual training doesn't have walls. It's just simply sending them a link and we can help support that. So thank you for attending today, and let's go back to not sharing slides and see if we have any questions or anything that you want to ask about this program. And I'll turn the time back over to Susie and Mark.
Thanks, Kathy. As a reminder to all of our attendees, you can click on the Q&A button in the bottom right corner, and that's where you can submit any questions. Kathy, would you be able to go through the Finding Resources PDF and expand on that information?
Yes, let me go to that site. Sorry, I closed that a moment ago. Let me just go find it really quick, and then we will share that for you. You said the Finding Resources one?
Correct.
All right, I'll bring that up. All right, I'm bringing that one up now. Okay. Finding resources is a really tricky thing because a lot of people don't even know how to look for the correct resource for their need. So we start by teaching them that resources are materials, money, people, or other products and services that can help a person more easily get through life. How does a caregiver find the right resources? Well, we talk about three very important things. A timely and useful resource is found by answering three questions. What outcome or result do I need? Because if I don't know what this resource needs to help me achieve, I will most likely choose the wrong resource. What type of product or service will make that possible? And what process would work best for me to get it to me once I do make a choice? So here's an example. A caregiver knows they are exhausted from a lack of time off. The request for help needs to be clearly defined, such as someone to sit with dad on Wednesday nights so I can have a night off. Professionals and others could then recommend products and services such as a family calendar with a sign-up sheet, volunteers, etc. The process would then be set up saying Jack will come to dad's house on Wednesdays from 6 to 9 p.m. But anytime even one of those things are missing, if I don't know what I want, if the product is incorrectly aligned, and if the process doesn't work for me, and really I need Wednesdays off, but right now the only family member that can help can only help on Saturdays. Any three of those, if they're not aligned, can cause a lot of frustration in the caregiver's world. So then we start just tearing the whole thing apart. What outcome or result do you need and why? And they just start to list outcomes that they might need. I need more sleep. I have too many concerns running through my mind. Maybe it's, I need somebody to come do the laundry because, man, there is a whole lot of it. And then after you know what outcome or result you want, it becomes possible to start a broad search for options. So then we start looking at laundry assistance in Salt Lake City or grief counseling in Utah. We start with a really broad statement. We type a question in an internet browser, or for those who have smartphones, you know, it's hitting that lovely little microphone and saying, hey, how do I find? And then we have them visit various booklets that might be available in their local area. They can go to 211 Utah, or if they're not even from Utah, one of the fun parts about these coaching sessions is it can get families together from various places around the world. So we can set up a coaching session with a family, and I've done these recently where one sister will be in California, the parents will be in Utah, the other sister's in Hawaii, and we will just set up the coaching session and they can all discuss this together with a professional right online and work through these statements together. So think about a result you need. What question could you ask someone or the internet to find a product or service? What companies in Salt Lake City offer homemaking services? And it just teaches you what might exist around homemaking so that you're not missing something by only guessing about services that you currently know about or that your neighbor knows about. Use the question written above to research products and services. What did you learn? Who could you contact to find out more about the products and services? In some of these worksheets, we give them places to put idea people. So if they think, oh, I could call my doctor, and what was his number again? And they find it and they write it on the worksheet. That way they can actually go and make contact with those individuals and keep that reference information right inside their worksheet. And 7 might be trying something new, set up delivery of a new product or service. Review specifics before ordering. What's the size of this? What's the weight? What's the delivery cost and the method? And what's the return policy in case this doesn't work? And we can even in the coaching sessions show them an online warehouse such as Amazon or Walmart or any other, and show them what that might look like and where they find the extra information on that so they know what they're ordering. And then we also teach them, you know, it's really important if you need help and you need to set up family or friends to come and help you with that delivery, we need to make sure that we talk to that person first before we order the item so that it comes on a weekend when we know somebody's going to be available to assist us, either in getting it out of the box or building it for us or whatever might be needed. And then we can show them anything else beyond there if they want to take it a little further. But basically, we're teaching them how to actually go find a good resource with that particular one. Does that answer your question,
Kathy.
Susie?
Absolutely. We had a request for you to share your contact information again. If you wouldn't
Okay.
mind sharing that.
Yeah, I should be able to put it right here. I think it's going to let me type in. It does.
Okay, and if you wanted to share that last slide again, that would work as well.
Okay, let me, yeah, because it's not going to let me send it that way. All right. Give me just a second and I'll share that slide again.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. There we go.
Perfect. And then another question, just to clarify, in order to have access to the talking points, we need to enroll in the Train Facilitator program.
Yes, that is how it will currently work. But that training facilitator program we're going to have be quite simple. So I'm hoping to have it 4 hours or under virtually so people can attend from various places in the state if they want the materials. So we're going to do it very simply. These obviously the best way to train on them, and we know this, so it will be kind of an overview of the fidelity of the program, how it functions in those 4 hours and what each one is. But we know that the best way that anybody who's going to participate in this program, the best way to learn these is actually to fill out the worksheet for yourself from your own environment, so that you're really having to think through these things and practice them before you actually teach them for the first time.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm gonna go ahead and
Another
stop sharing now.
question.
Hopefully they got that. Okay.
Yep. Sorry if I missed this detail, but if APS is investigating a caregiver for caregiver neglect, can we refer the caregiver to the program to complete as part of the investigation?
You know what? I don't see why not. We haven't talked through that fully. We don't give out necessarily certificates, but what I did for that judge in the future, I mean, in the past was every time somebody came to a 6-part caregiver academy or whatever we were teaching at the time, I simply gave them a certificate of completion to take back to that judge stating that they actually completed the course. So we could do that for an APS worker as well. If they wanted someone to come and do a coaching session with us or attend a public session on a specific topic, I would just need to know from the professional, whether it's a judge, an APS worker, or whomever, that they need that certificate of completion for a specific individual. They can have the individual tell me, they could give, a letter and email it to me. It doesn't matter the process from their side. I just need to know that that particular caregiver would need a certificate of completion. Because truly, we do hold our caregivers, unfortunately, account for a complete lack of knowledge. And often that accounting is very, very severe. And they've been really trying to do the best they can, but sometimes they just missed that piece of skill that they desperately needed to do this right. So I would love to be able to assist more caregivers that way.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kathy. We appreciate that helpful and informative presentation. And with that, we have reached the end of this session of the Utah Elder Justice Conference. And I want to thank you for attending the Caregiver Talking Points, a preventive wellness coaching program session. Also, that does conclude the conference for today, as this was our last session. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating and for being with us today. So enjoy the rest of your day and take care. Thank you.